My name is Alexander Ioffe, and I work at Nasdaq. I do data, big data, small data. I manage the flow of the data that needs to happen throughout different processes that exist within the organization, and that's my job. This is my first time speaking at Scala by the Bay. I heard about this conference originally from my meetup group in Philly that's hosted by Brian Clapper, and it sounded like an awesome conference, so here I am. This is actually not only my first time speaking at a conference of this size, but actually going to a conference of this size, and it's a little bit overwhelming to take in, but on the other hand, the environment is just so friendly that it's been really a great ride for me. I really am loving it here. The memes. I think it's important. I think it's important to do everything tempered with a lot of humor. I think that there are so many parts to a talk. There are so many different important things to sort of fit together, and each thing needs its own attention. I'm really excited about talking about what I've done with Rob in literally an hour. I think that it's amazing how much interesting stuff can be changed and moved within really a compressed period of time. You think about how it takes days and months and years to manage all these giant libraries and all these humongous frameworks, and that you know, in big corporations, you have cost estimates about some gazillion man years that it takes to do something. But just the fact that we were able to sit together and write a nice integration layer between two fairly large frameworks within such a short amount of time, I think is really a testament to how amazing and powerful collaborative development can be. Because, again, you know, Nasdaq, like all Fortune 500 companies, uses a vast amount of SQL, whether it be in traditional database products or humongous big data pipelines that are pushing terabytes through some data warehousing product. It's all about being able to have the correct abstractions on top of these things, and to be able to have the correct abstractions that allow the developers to stay sane. And so a lot of the work that I've been doing for the past 2 years actually has been yet another giant big data pipeline that's supposed to push data off to all the data that's generated off to a regulatory organization, and all of the interesting things that happen. Things like this they were not possible even 6 or 7 years ago. The idea that you can handle data of this volume and this complexity. So it's really exciting about where this is going. I think Heather earlier talked about the fact that with open source we got code reuse right. Open source is the only model for code reuse that I've ever seen that actually has gotten the picture right, because inevitably, if you're in a corporate shop, you have two use cases really that are the most important. And sort of everything ultimately becomes tailored to those two use cases, versus with open source, you are just forced into thinking correctly about the abstractions that you want to make. So I think that open source and frameworks like Quill help the entire industry immensely, and Nasdaq and the finance industry is certainly no exception to that. There was a talk on Apache Arrow that was really good. The Zio talk was good. I'm learning new things about layers of abstraction and frameworks that I didn't know existed. It's a blast. I think corporations these days, in terms of their software stacks, are doing the right thing. In terms of their integration between the components, in terms of using proprietary technologies together with open source components correctly, and building out those pipelines. And in the finance industry and other industries also as well as let me redo that. In the finance industry as well. You're good.
Combining proprietary.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of very interesting movement in the industry these days. Companies are doing the right thing in terms of combining proprietary stacks with open source stacks. Even the finance data. Can I just continue off from there?
Yeah.
Even the finance industry is doing the correct thing in terms of integration with open source stacks, which I think is a very pleasant surprise, and doing the right thing in terms of the data, in terms of being able to scale up things to developers and having good development practices. And so all of these pieces with the integration are really just coming together. We're just having this sort of all the pieces falling in line with the DevOps Kubernetes stack and the reactive stack and the messaging stack and all of that sort of all coming together at the same time. And it's breathtaking in terms of, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for all of this to happen for the past 5 years, and suddenly a lot of it is here. And so I always envision these things as happening as like a trickle kind of thing. A little bit of this would happen, a little bit of this would happen, but it's all really quite sudden. And the movement to better practices and better ways of dealing with development overall seems to be taking a turn for the better. Sure. I don't really have anything to compare to because this is my first time at a conference of this size. I've been at some smaller ones, but nothing this big. So I don't have sort of any major insights to share in terms of how to do something like this logistically, because I have no idea. I think that Alexi mentioned Scale by the Hudson Bay, and doing something like that would be awesome. I would definitely come to that and definitely try and submit a talk for that. That would be really cool. In terms of just getting bigger conferences and bigger venues, I think that a component that you could integrate into a conference like this would be a hackathon. I think that would fit quite nicely into sort of maybe a fourth track, something like that, where you could do hackathons for particular products. I think that would be a natural extension of doing this sort of stuff.